Marvin, whenever you're ready, we have the participants in.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to the AIA 2030 commitment, uh, participating as a small firm presentation with the AIA NJ Small Firm Exchange. My name is Marvin Clausen. I'm the current chair with Brian Pinchow. And our mission is to become a resource for small firms with less than 15 people on staff, empowering small firms through education, advocacy, and sharing of best practices. If you'd like to join our committee or help on future events, please contact Christina Goldstein, our meetings and events manager, and her contact information is cgoldstein at njpsi.com, and we'll place that in the chat. Also, we have a Slack channel open to all AIA small firm practitioners. It's a place to ask questions on professional practice, building design, detailing, how to get referrals for engineers, contractors, and consultants. In other words, it's a place to share knowledge and resources where one can enjoy the company of like-minded professionals. And so for information to join the Slack channel will also be in the chat. It'll be small firm exchange AIA-NJ. I'd also like to recognize at this moment William Martin, AIA, our state representative to the National AIA Small Firm Exchange. Bill provides valuable insights for our state committee by attending monthly representative calls with small firm representatives from each state around the United States. So today we're joined by Brandon Alterman of Spizzell Architectural Group, he is the current chair of the AIA New Jersey Committee on the Environment, or COAT, and he will introduce each of the panelists and facilitate the question and answer sessions at the conclusion of the presentation. All right, Brandon, without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Great, thank you, Marvin. All right, so today we're gonna be joined by Marisol Gallagher of Marisol Studios, Andrew Hassan, who is a manager, climate action pledge programs with AIA National, and we'll have Alyssa Manypenny Murphy, um, also an architect. Panelists are going to be exploring the barriers small firms encounter in the 2030 reporting process and examine practical solutions that support more effective participation. Through discussion and shared care-based perspectives, participants will identify common barriers to 2030 reporting, including limiting staff capacity, data collection hurdles, and unfamiliar tools. The conversation will also highlight practical strategies, resources, and workflows that small firms can adopt to simplify reporting and stay engaged with commitment. During the presentation, the presenters aren't going to be able to hear questions, but you can post them in the Q&A section, and then I will ask them at the conclusion of the chat. Christina Goldstein is going to be handling any of the credit filing. Um, and yeah, with that, I will turn it over to our presenters. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Great. Marisol, Alyssa, if you want to provide quicker introductions, that'd be fantastic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marisol Gallagher. I'm the founder and principal architect with Marisol Studios, and I'll go into a little bit more of my bio later.
Likewise, I'm Alyssa Murphy, principal of Placework, and you'll hear more from me later.
Hi, everyone. And as noted, Andrew Hassan here, manager of climate action pledge programs for AIA National. Really happy to be here. And as I noted in the chat, I'm very glad to also be joined by some of our 2030 working group members, Corey Duggan and Lindsay Love, AIAs, who will be present during the conclusion of our presentation for Q&A if you have any questions. Lindsay has presented as well in the past on preparing sustainability action plans from small firms' perspective. So anything also regarding SAPs, Marisol will also present on that, but Lindsay will also be present to answer any questions. So thanks to my 2030 working group colleagues for joining us today. Next slide, please. Awesome. So yeah, a quick agenda for today. I'll be covering the introduction to the AIA 2030 commitment, climate change at large and the role of the architect, 2030 for the industry and for your firm. And then I'll just be providing a quick rundown of our AI 2030 commitment resources. If you are a current signatory, you've already used these, being the DDX, the peer-to-peer network, et cetera. And then Marisol and Alyssa will cover participating as a small firm, their perspective, how to get started, and then integrating your sustainability action plan into your day-to-day. And then we'll be concluding with a Q&A. Next slide, please. So our learning objectives, obviously today, identifying common barriers that small architecture firms face when collecting project performance data and completing AI 2030 commitment reporting. Explain how building energy performance, carbon reduction strategies, and data-driven design decisions contribute to a healthy, safe, and more sustainable built environment. Evaluate practical tools, workflows, and resources that small firms can use to streamline energy modeling, documentation, and performance reporting, and apply strategies for integrating building performance tracking into the design process to support improved environmental quality and long-term occupant health and safety. Next slide, please. Awesome. Great. So on the screen right now is just a QR code. If you haven't accessed any of our AIA 2030 resources on our website, this has consolidated all there. So if you take a quick moment to scan that, this will take you to the AIA landing page for the commitment itself. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Awesome. So why we're all here today. So building operations are responsible for about 20, throw this figure around, 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions globally. To get started, obviously, we must acknowledge the contribution of the built environment to climate change, and then obviously present the significant role that the built environment has in our ability to adapt and mitigate its worst effects, and then the role that you play in reducing the overall GHG emissions globally. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, climate change is a design issue. Buildings generate about, as I just mentioned, 30% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. And in many cities, the building sector contributes an even higher share of emissions. Cities like Boston, that's about 70%. It's worth noting that the 2030 commitment mostly focuses on emissions from building operations. However, we have started to create opportunities to track embodied carbon as well. Embodied carbon, if you don't know, is the carbon emitted over a life cycle of a project, and is increasingly important because it encompasses emissions that are spent upfront. Embodied carbon also presents about 11% of total greenhouse gas emissions globally, so a quarter of building sector emissions. What we do on our day-to-day has a huge impact on the global CO2 emissions. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Perfect. So which brings us to the AI 2030 commitment. The mission of the AI 2030 commitment is to support 2030 challenge, the 2030 challenge, and transform the practice of architecture in a way that's holistic, firm-wide, project-based, and data-driven. Next slide, please. The mission of the AI 2030 commitment is to support the 2030 challenge, as I just mentioned. We've been using using 2030 as our target year to achieve carbon neutral building. It's a completely voluntary program administered by the AIA as part of our work to build a carbon neutral future. And let's get to zero together. We do have a quick video. I am not sure if the sound is going to play. Can we try it again, Brandon?
It's definitely not going to play because
Okay,
it just
that's
played
fine.
and you didn't hear it. So
No worries.
yeah.
They're just introduction videos. We will share them as a link in our list of resources following the presentation. So you can hop on to the next slide. Just make sure I'm on the same one. Perfect. Oops, one sec. Oh yeah, so this graph here shows, I'm so sorry, my screen is completely stuck. All right, so yeah, this next graph here is make sure we're on the same one. Shows obviously our 2030 signatory growth from our starting year of 2010. You'll see in you know the past 2, 3 years, we've kind of leveled off as the number of signatories have increased. The number of actually like reporting firms on a year to year kind of remain the same. So that's why you'll see the share of actual reporting firms to the amount of signatories that we have decrease. We are actively um, trying to obviously increase those numbers. You probably have seen a bunch of emails from me if you are a signatory come through just to encourage reporting. If the reporting has seemed daunting to you, we're obviously here to address any of those concerns, and what qualifies you as a signatory is very, very basic. So we'll get into that today. Where we're at today, we're expected for our 20, as you may know, our deadline for the 2025 reporting was the end of last month, March 31st. We provided extensions to many firms, especially our large firms who have, thousands of projects to report on. So we're still in the process of encouraging firms to complete their 2025 reporting. So if you are a small firm and you have not done so, we'll get into it today, but you can still do it. I would love to see the numbers get higher than last year's to at least maintain the percentage reporting number. So yeah, happy to answer those questions about, or if you need an extension, just shoot me an email, which I'll provide later. And yeah, would encourage you to get at least one project in. Next slide, please. Great. So, oops. Sorry about that. All right, so uh, what is going on? All right, so our program builds accountability around these aspirational targets established by Architecture 2030, an independent nonprofit. In 2006, these targets provide a pathway to reduce predicted energy use intensity, or PUI, the decrease reliance on fossil fuels toward a carbon neutral future, culminating in 100% reductions by 2030, as you'll see here. So program participants, which we call signatories, commit to working towards these progressively more challenging targets in pursuit of carbon neutral buildings by 2030. Um, Additionally, signatories author a sustainable action plan that I just mentioned in their first year, and this is intended to be a statement of the company's approach to sustainable design to help them chart a path for achieving these targets. Our metrics for 2030 commitments, as you'll see thrown up on on these graphs, energy use intensity EUI measured in kBTUI by square footage per year. The standard unit for site energy used in buildings as opposed to source at the generating station, and then LPD, lighting power density, measured in watts per square footage. As you move across these bars in 5-year increments, the targets for energy use is supposed to get more aggressive, so percent below baseline. And those, and so that takes predicted use by building type. There is a base unit for each predicted use by building type, and what your target energy use should be below that. In this period from where we're currently at now, 2025 to 2029, EUI targets for new buildings and renovations, it's at 90% below baseline based on your project type. For interior renovations, target 25% LPD below baseline. As we'll get into later, for interior projects, bare minimum is LPD is all that's required, but you are welcome to submit more data if you want. Next slide, please. So the importance of a common framework really cannot be overstated when it comes to our sector. By collectively calculating data the same way, the 2030 commitment not only populates an educational directory of projects, it advances our industry in three key ways, which I'll get into. So 2030 commitment, first and foremost, helps us communicate our collective impact in reducing carbon. We'll talk about more about this in a minute. The designs reported from 2019 alone are projected to avoid the same amount of carbon as what would be sequestered by 26.4 million acres of forest in a year. These are the numbers that we obviously look to advertise broadly. So those are great figures just from that 1 year alone, 2019. Second, 2030 commitment helps individual users establish baselines and understand what's achievable. We see projects of nearly every project type meeting or exceeding our annual targets. And finally, 2030 commitment signals to our clients, peers, and policymakers that the building sector is serious about our role in getting to zero. In fact, the entire US building sector CO2 emissions are 30% below 2005 levels, even though over 50, billion square feet was added to its building stock over the same period. We have the know-how to limit building sector emissions, and our data is proving it. Next slide, please. Without getting to the mechanics of designing a carbon neutral project, here are some kind of like high level insights that architects and policy makers can learn from our 2030 commitment signatories. So first, design strategies have the greatest impact on building use type. Methodologies for designing to reduce energy usage include site analyses, climate data for that place, or the orientation to address the site to optimize energy use, model and documenting PUI each phase milestone, developing strategies to hit those goals of reduce PUI or LPD at each design phase, and report and sharing data for each project every year. Design strategies have the greatest impact on building energy use type, as I just noted. And yeah, the architects and engineers really can play a huge role in having that greatest impact earlier on in the stage. So earlier on in the design process. So adaptation, renovations of tear down, design for extremely high performance resilience, energy modeling everything, salvage materials instead of virgin, using only potable water for drinking, use lower embodied carbon materials and materials that sequester CO2, and then obviously establishing a firm sustainability action plan at the get-go. In both commercial and residential sectors, our signatories find that they can achieve PUI reductions as high as 80% by focusing on orientation, envelope, and enclosure. In many cases, architects have pursued passive house credentials and applied those to their whole portfolio. An added upside to well-designed passive project is obviously increased resilience to changing climate and power outages. Next slide, please. So this data consistently, what it shows is that model projects perform with higher percentage PUI reductions. This was 2024's data. This year, so last year, non-model projects driven by default code reductions stayed relatively steady at 50% PUI reduction, compared with the 49% PUI reduction in ROI reporting year 2023. Again, this is because our last data set that we have is from 2024. We're still doing the analysis for 2025, so this is a year behind. In relatively stark comparison, model projects jumped to a 60% PUI reduction. This difference between non-modeled and model projects is once again expanding, reflecting a delta of 10 points of PUI reduction, the most reported since 2019. While higher performing prescriptive energy codes are raising the bar for energy efficiency, and energy code prescriptive minimums have had an impact on PUI reduction, the marked increase in performance of model projects goes a long way in explaining the overall 6-point jump in PUI across all whole buildings projects for ROI 2024. AI continues to be a strong advocate for energy modeling across all of our projects. Next slide, please. So the second theme in early is early energy modeling. These two charts obviously show a breakdown of um, our the makeup of our signatories by firm size. You'll see that small firms actually make up a larger proportion of our signatories. Um, but then you'll see here that the reporting firms by size, so the quantity of firms is it's much less. So we definitely want to get those numbers up higher. Um, can you go to the next slide, please, actually? So the second theme, as I just mentioned, I jumped ahead, was early energy modeling. Regardless of who does the energy model or what tool you use, having one early in the design process gives the design team critical insights to best estimate performance for their design option and determine potential savings. It's essential to getting to zero net energy, made easier by a range of projects on the market at all price points and with multiple levels of sophistication. There's a tool out there that meets your needs. You just need to find it, and we are there to help you do that. In 2019 alone, projects that used energy modeling were 32 um, percent more energy efficient than non-modeled projects. That means if a company is not modeling, it is leaving real energy and cost savings for its clients on the table. Those savings easily translate into return on investment for things that matter most to your clients. Next slide, please. Um, I think I'm jumping ahead. All right, yeah, sorry. So the third theme, just making sure I'm the same one. Oh, sorry, can you go back one? Back one. I was totally ahead. There you go. The third theme is related to renewable energy solutions. Um, so as we move closer to the 2030 deadline for carbon neutral buildings, renewable energy solutions are going to become more important than ever. Um, and for some project types in cities, offsite renewable energy may be the only way of hitting our program targets. So with that, I think I will include the link in our list of resources following this presentation. We do have this architect's primer on renewable energy that this guide provides a starting point for architects and other design team members to meet their clients' goals and contribute to a more sustainable distributed electric grid. The resource dives into the different types of renewable energy technology available at the building scale and how to determine which renewable solution fits your project best. It also includes strategies for projects where on-site renewables aren't an option. So we will circulate that following this presentation. Um, let's see. I think we can skip that video, Brandon. Yeah, sadly. All right. Oops. There you go. All right, so I was trying to cover what Michelle says in that video, but I will do it for her since the sound's not playing. In the video, which we will also circulate, our colleague does also talk about several of the top reasons firms have become 2030 commitment signatories. Just being a climate leader, measuring project and portfolio performance via AIA's free online tool, the DDX, and building a culture of innovation that helps teams constantly improve. This last point, helping teams constantly improve, is really critical and closely related to another commonly cited reasons firms are joining to get recognized and to win awards. As design awards programs become across the country embrace sustainability, like in New Jersey, embrace sustainability performance data, 2030 commitment signatories are often out in front because they are actively collecting that data. Our online reporting tool, the DEX, helps signatories centralize data, so a project's PUI or wall-to-wall ratio is at the fingertips come award season. Then consider the impact of practice. Because the 2030 commitment sets portfolio-wide goals, project teams become adept at leveraging aesthetics and performance in tandem on every project, not just the flagship ones. Finally, consider your own organizational culture, systems, and processes. Do they consistently incentivize high performance design? And as noted earlier, the mission of 2030 is to transform practice in every way that's holistic, firm-wide, project-based, and data-driven. For many, achieving the 2030 commitment targets will require ongoing changes in your organizational culture, systems, and processes, which brings me to my next slide. On this sustainable action plan. We will be going to this in detail later on, but just for the broader audience who might not know what a sustainable action plan is. It's a company-wide strategy for developing sustainable design, best practices to meet the program's goals. It could be considered a measurement framework with continual focus on evaluation, adaptation, improvement on a year-to-year basis. It is iterative. It's not meant to be a static tool. So therefore, it should be considered a long-term planning tool to ensure alignment with your own firm's values, goals, and practice. We have this PDF guide on our website, also will be shared with you following this call. That really breaks down the SAP into essential pieces, including baselining current company attitudes towards sustainability and practice, assessing your internal education and capacity, and much more. So look forward to sharing that around. Next slide, please. This is a quote from David Arkin, AIA, from Arkin Tilt Architects, from their perspective of, I'll read it out loud. If you haven't reported yet, pick a project, any project, go into the DDX and load it. We started with one our first year. We actually loaded up before our first project. We loaded up our first project before we even created our sustainability action plan. So don't let those other steps that are required of being a signatory prevent you from diving in. And the next thing we realized, actually reported our entire portfolio the following year. Oops, I forgot year. And the next year we actually reported our entire portfolio because we realized how easy it was. So really, as we get into what's required of a signatory is just one project to be considered a reporting firm for that year. So just hop in, go into it. And if you have any questions or any struggles, we have help pages. You can contact us at AIA National to provide support, or your local cohort if they have a chapter there to support you. Next slide, please. Cool. And these are some myths that really folks confront. It takes too much time. For one project, it typically takes about 30 minutes to or less really to collect the required data. We actually have a help page which will be circulated as well that includes just a breakdown of just the required data for a project for a whole building renovation or interior only. So we have that available. It makes it much less daunting because if you look at all the fields in the DDX, you're like, whoa, this is a lot. It really breaks it down to a kind of digestible size reporting. Requires too many resources. Well, the program's free, and you will join a network of helpful peers on our 2030 commitment peer-to-peer network. You can post questions to anyone across the country, and there'll be folks there to answer it. If not, our 2030 working group members are more than happy to do so, and obviously us at AIA National. You may have performing projects in your portfolio, so don't worry about that. It's all about improvement, but also the data is aggregated and anonymous. No one outside AIA National is sees the data, or that's it's all anonymized. So don't worry about that. I'll have to achieve the 2030 targets. For us, actually making progress is more important than meeting the target. So yeah, disclose your whole portfolio. It doesn't matter if some are worse performing than others. The project must be complete. So 2030 is a framework that actually sets these energy targets early in design and track progress at each phase. So we are asking as the design phases progress that you update it. So honestly, if it's early design phase data, it's very welcome. Next slide, please. So this is from our by the numbers 2030 report. I won't go into detail. We actually have a bunch of webinars, and I will get into an AIAU course that goes into depth about our by the numbers report for 2024. So we can skip ahead, I think, on this one. And this is just a summary for our RA24. We had a total of 33,350 whole building projects, and that aggregated a weighted average of 56% PUI reduction. So yeah, there's some improvement year to year from 2023 to 2024, 6 percentage points. Next slide. We'll go through this really quickly because I'm over time. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have these help pages. So this is for the DDX, if using DDX for reporting via an energy modeling tool, API connection, bulk upload, or directly in the DDX. This provides you with all that data, all that information on how to actually get your projects uploaded onto the DDX. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the peer-to-peer network, if you have not signed up yet, please do so. We use the peer-to-peer network to not only share resources, blogs, reminders about the 2030 reporting periods, but it is obviously in the discussion area a way for you to communicate directly to other signatory firms and architects. Next slide, please. We have our YouTube page. This is where we actually upload all of our recordings from all of our webinars. During the reporting period, we hold open office hours, different themes about updates year to year, but to the DDX, walking through the DDX and like the process of reporting projects, and then open-ended Q&A type session and stuff. So all the 2025 webinars or open office hours are uploaded and recorded and uploaded for easy access. So be sure to check that out as well. Next slide, please. And as I noted, the by the numbers report is available on our AIA 2030 commitment website. Yeah, please do check it out. It offers architects and firms a way of publicly showing their dedication and track progress towards a carbon neutral future. It really consolidates all the data collected in a very neat, digestible way. So it's definitely not a daunting report. Next slide, please. And as I noted, following the publication of our last By the Numbers report, we did have a By the Numbers deep dive webinar. And obviously, you can get credits from this course. It's available for viewing on AIAU, and that is also going to be shared as a link to everyone following the call or webinar. Next slide. Yeah, and take this down. Obviously, it'll be circulated as well. But if you do have any questions, as I mentioned before, it's not too late to submit for 2025, even if it's just one project. We'd love to see it. So please do try to submit one for 2025 or more. We'd love to see your entire portfolio. But if you do have any questions, here's how to contact our team, Climate Action Pledge Program, so the 2030 commitment at AIA.org. Yeah, thanks. Next slide. That's it for me, and I'll pass it off. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, hi, thanks, Andrew. My name is Alyssa Murphy, and I'm a principal and founder of Placework. We're a small firm in New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in the little corner of New Hampshire between Massachusetts and Maine. And we are a women-owned certified firm and also a certified B Corporation, but we were not either of those things 5 years ago when we sort of started our AIA 2030 journey. So next slide. The work we do is mostly institutional work, broadly speaking. These are some projects, a library, a community center, a college facility, and actually a brewery. Most of these shown are adaptive reuse, and that is really the bulk of our work, which has been a strategy, as Andrew noted, design strategies for carbon reduction and climate impact come in all shapes and sizes. We were always focused on reuse. but have also focused on energy through our engagement here. So next slide. So this is us. We're just 8 people in our little open office. And we're really proud to now we are a 6-year reporting participant in the AIA 2030 commitment. Next. So I think Andrew went through a lot of benefits of why you might become involved with the AIA 2030 commitment. But I think for everybody, there has to be a personal motivation. You know, if we are a small firm owners or practitioners, there's a lot to do. We have a lot of things going on, and sometimes it's hard to think about one thing more, right? But in 2020, I was really moved by a book by Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Catherine Wilkinson. It was called All We Can Save. It's a collection of essays and poems, other writings by women that address the climate crisis from a lot of perspectives. And there's one quote, just a sentence that sort of struck me. It's by Sherry Mitchell, who's an Indigenous lawyer and author from Maine. And she says, in order to survive, we must all come to realize that we do not exist solely for the benefit and development of our individual lives as human beings. So that's pretty basic, right? But it really made me think, what can I do in my work life that will broaden my impact and make sure that I am working for the good of everyone. So next slide. Oh, I forgot to mention that was the White Mountains. My family and I hiking in the Presidential Range. It's a beautiful part of the country. Okay, so if you have made that decision that yes, maybe the 2030 commitment is something that you'd like to engage in, I wanted to break it down into the very, very simple steps to get there. So next slide. The first thing that a 2030 commitment asks you to do is just write a letter. This is an example of the letter that we wrote back in 2020. As an aside, I'm going to put a bunch of things here that have a lot of small text on it. You are not meant to read the text. It is just trying to communicate. It's a 1-page letter, and it was a template. The AIA provided this language. It's really just you putting your name to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So the commitment letter is step 1. Step 2 is a sustainability action plan. And as Andrew said, AIA has a lot of resources on what is a sustainable action plan, how to build one. We did a lot of looking around, and this is our first sustainability action plan. I believe the commitment gives you 6 months from your time of committing to uploading a sustainability action plan. And that was perfect. We got this accomplished by September 2020. And it was just 2 pages. We looked at how might we address sustainability through design, through our staff education, how are we going to be accountable and report on things, how are we going to outreach, and how does this affect our office operations? Those were our first couple areas, couple bullet points. It was pretty straightforward. Next slide. And the third piece is really the reporting. And I have to say that this was the most daunting piece. Reporting, to me, sounded terrible and just really onerous. And what does this mean? And how many spreadsheets am I going to have to deal with? Really not very exciting. But this is our just company page in the DDX. I think I wanted to share visibility into the actual system. What does the DDX look like, and what am I going to be asked to upload? So here you see there's just basic company information. In the center, you do upload your commitment letter, and on the right, you do upload your sustainability action plan, and that's the basis of what you enter. Next slide. Entering an individual project, and like was previously said, you can enter just one project, and that's really the place to start. It is all information that you have. This first page, basic information. I highlight these two pieces because even, it says construction type. Oh, well, the construction type. We're not talking about the IBC or anything here. These are the two choices. It's a pull down menu. Is it new construction or is it a major renovation? Those are your only two choices. Similarly, project type. Are you dealing with the whole building? Are you dealing with interior only? We find that with adaptive reuse projects and sort of weird small projects that we do, things don't fall into these categories so cleanly, but it's okay. There are only two choices. You choose one of them that is the closest thing and you move on. So that's the basic page. Next slide. The second page asks you for a little more information about square footage and building costs, but really the most important thing is energy code used. Because if you are not doing energy modeling, which we do not for every project, there are some projects that we do and many that we're not able to for various reasons. The DDX will calculate your predicted energy use intensity based on your square footage and your energy code, assuming that at the baseline, you're meeting your code. So that's important, that it is not necessary to do an energy model. It's great, it's better, but in order to report, you don't need to do that. Next slide. And then this is the last piece. There are a series of these yes/no slides that you see on the right. In this case, maybe this is an interiors project. We did not do an energy model, so predicted energy use says no. Renewable energy sources, there weren't any, so that says no. But lighting power density, yes. We clicked yes, a new field opens, and we could enter that because it's the data that we had for that project. So this has been a great way to just know that there's some amount of data for every project. You're not going to have the same data for everything, and that is okay. Okay, next slide. And this is just an example of what our list of projects look like. You put them all in there. They're different reporting years. As Andrew said, we report on them year after year. One year you might report something at schematic design. The next year it's in CDs, or maybe it's in construction, and you can update what it's, maybe in the meantime you've done an energy model and you have new information, so you can keep going with that. Next slide. One back, please. Yep, this is just circling that Coat Top 10 button. And now you can go forward. I just want to highlight this for anybody who has been in DDX, because this is something new from this year. Next slide. If you have been familiar in the past with the AIA Coat Top 10 super spreadsheet, that has been and still is an Excel sheet that has a lot of data in it. That is being integrated into the DDX. Right now, you can put data in. Again, you definitely don't have to, but I just wanted to highlight that the system is undergoing upgrades all the time for collecting more data and also being a tool to learn from. So it's in process, but I just wanted to note that that is also there. We have not used this for any of our projects yet, but we look forward to it. Next slide. And this is just a graphic. This is something that the DDX does not provide for you. But we wanted to see what our projects looks like. And this is actually a data visualization produced with Tableau, the public version, which was free. It was a template created by Jesse Waltham, AIA, of Malem Architects out in Seattle. He created this, and I think one of our team members went to a presentation he did at the conference one year, and we loaded our data into this, and we're able to see now the green that reached 100%. Great, we have a few projects these happen to be, 100% renewable energy, net zero, wonderful. But we have lots and lots of projects that are not even at 50% reduction. I believe this is our 2023 data, so I'm looking forward to doing this again as we progress and seeing if we can get more projects over that green line. But it's a great way to compare your own work year over year. Next. So I just wanted to mention that 2030, when we made this decision to become signatories back in 2020, it was a time, well, there was a lot going on in the world in 2020. I feel a little bit like the world now, there's a lot going on. And it's a time when we were looking to find ways to really make a difference in our practice and metrics, which were something that we always thought, well, we're doing our best we can. Engaging with metrics really changed the way we looked at things. And so these are two different programs. JUST is a program of Living Future, the ILFI, International Living Future Institute. B corporations is not limited to architecture or design. It is for all companies. And I think the 2030 commitment was sort of a gateway to engaging with these other programs that have really transformed the way our firm functions. Next, please. And as an example of that, this is our current sustainability action plan that we updated last year. And you can see this is just the cover and the table of contents. We're now really looking at our mission, our values, different areas of design and operations where we can have an impact. And next. We also have sort of high-level goals within each of these areas, both a 1-year goal and a 5-year goal. When we started, we just sort of put some bullet points out there without any sort of time binding to time. But now we do try to have 1-year goals and 5-year goals so that we can mark our progress through. Next. And these are just some pages out of our sustainability action plan. So within each area, there are a number of different points for our 1-year and 5-year goals. And that is what is guiding us forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Marisol to talk a little bit about how this happens in your practice or can.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My fellow presenters have done a fantastic job of explaining the 2030 commitment and how to integrate reporting into your practice. Next slide, please. Today, I'm going to talk about how I'm approaching the AIA 2030 commitment as a sole practitioner through my sustainability action plan. Because while small firms don't have scale, we do have something equally powerful, direct control over design decisions. Next slide. My name is Marisol Gallagher, and I'm the founder of Marisol Studios, a Colorado-based firm focusing on high-performance residential design. My work sits at the intersection of passive house principles, sustainability consulting, and industry leadership. So I'm thinking about performance both at the building scale and at the industry scale. I have experience directing sustainability at a mid-sized firm where I signed us on to the 2030 commitment and wrote the SAP, which they're still using today. I then founded my firm at the beginning of last year as a sole practitioner to focus on high-performance residential design, as well as sustainability consulting with small residential-focused firms. In terms of volunteering and advocacy, I'm a board member of the executive committee of the Small Firm Exchange, a firm member of the Colorado Embodied Carbon Collaborative, past chair of the AIA Colorado Committee on the Environment, past board member for the Colorado Green Building Guild, a member of the Strategic Engagement Committee with Aspen's Core, and a member of the Passive House Network's Rocky Mountain chapter. Next slide, please. One of the biggest misconceptions about the 2030 commitment is that you need a large firm and a lot of data to participate meaningfully. But for small firms, opportunity isn't scale, it's mission clarity and consistency. Every project, every decision becomes an opportunity to move the needle. Next slide. The core idea I want to share is this. High performance design starts at the top and is made a reality through the project team. If we don't get the early decisions right, the rest of the process is just trying to compensate. And here are some key takeaways from my sustainability action plan. Next slide. This diagram shows two very different paths. On the left, performance is built into the project from the beginning through siting, massing, and envelope strategy. On the right, those early decisions are missed, and the team tries to compensate later on with more insulation, bigger systems, and more complexity. A lower level design team can only go so far if they're handed a poor performing concept. So the question becomes, are we designing for performance or trying to fix it later? The codes have an overemphasis on insulation because it is an easy metric to inspect on site. And while it has a role, it is not the driving factor of high performance and cannot be a fix-all solution applied later on. Next slide. One of the building science methodologies that I apply to all of my projects is Passive House. I'm sure most of you have heard of Passive House, and some might even be able to list off the 5 key design principles. These next graphics explain those 5 and expand on those and are courtesy of the Passive House Accelerator, a fantastic online resource, and we'll share the link with you here. Some of these are easier than others to quantify and design around. And as a certified Passive House designer and tradesperson, I have adopted these principles for my projects. To clients, I frame Passive House as a resilient, durable, energy efficient, comfortable, and healthy approach to good design. Next slide. Continuous insulation, we've been doing this for a while. It's easier, and in some jurisdictions, Passive House level isn't too much more than code compliance. Next slide. No thermal bridges. This is about stopping components of your design from radiating hot and cold energy through the building envelope. This one takes some more math to figure out, but newer energy codes are adopting psi and chi values to address thermal bridging. The most common areas of failure are at the intersections of building components, roof to wall, wall to floor, envelope penetrations, and structure. Next slide. Air tightness. This one sounds deceptively easy, but takes a lot of care and coordination on the contractor side. Luckily, blower door tests and tighter construction methods are much more common today. For Marisol Studios, this means the building passes the red line test, where I can trace a continuous air barrier around all building sections. While this certainly helps with drafts and not allowing cold or hot air to pass through the envelope, it is also important for water management, as air can hold a lot of water. When hot air meets a cold surface, we have condensation. So stop the air before it gets to the cold surface. Next slide. High performance windows and doors doesn't just stop at triple pane windows. There are certified Passive House windows that meet the thermal bridging, air tightness, and performance metrics demanded of Passive House projects. Some domestic window manufacturers maintained their 2-pane window frame and squeezed an extra pane of glass in there so they could sell it as a triple pane window, but the performance is marginally better. While triple pane windows are more common in European countries, there are several US and North American certified Passive House window manufacturers. You just have to ask the questions and look into the data for it. Next slide. Fresh air with heat recovery. The air we heat on the inside is used to warm up the cold outdoor air before being exhausted outside, and vice versa. And ERV will also transfer humidity. We are constructing tighter buildings, so we need a way to bring in fresh air without 100% depending on manual window operation. For locations that suffer from poor outdoor air quality from pollution or wildfire smoke, these will filter out the pollutants and deliver fresh air to the building occupants. Next slide. Shading addresses solar heat gain through the windows. I've seen projects in Aspen, Colorado, which is climate zone 7, have a higher cooling demand than heating because the building orientation and form did not consider window placement and shading. Next slide. Orientation and form are the starting point. Even in projects where the orientation is fixed on site, you have a lot of freedom in establishing a form that isn't overcomplicated and accounts for daylighting, glare, and solar heat gain, as well as solar panel placement if there's going to be roof-mounted solar. Next slide. If we're considering energy reduction and the quality of the indoor environment, daylighting is important. However, this needs to be balanced by not allowing too much heat gain in the summer and potentially utilizing the solar heat gain to offset heating costs in the winter. While it might be counterintuitive, one well-placed large window is better performing than the same window area split up into smaller windows. So be smart about window placement and size. Next slide. Moisture management. We design buildings to shed water, but with the introduction of spray foam, we stopped allowing our buildings to breathe and dry out via diffusion. Design with vapor permeable or open membranes, finishes, and insulation, while ensuring your dew point doesn't fall inside the wall cavity or roof. When, not if, water gets in, give it a way out to prevent mold growth and decomposition of organic material, such as the building sheathing or wood framing. Next slide. Orientation. Oh, sorry, is there one more? Okay, that's okay. Orientation, massing, and form determine a huge part of a building's energy performance. By the time you're detailing assemblies, a lot of those decisions are already locked in. So if sustainability isn't embedded early, it becomes much harder and more expensive to achieve. That's why all of these early decisions really matter. Next slide. As a firm or project leader, take the time to invest in your education. Your projects will benefit from it, and most importantly, your staff will recognize your commitment and learn how to be better designers through you. So if it were up to me, everyone on staff would do the training, but I'm currently a one-woman team. And if cost is an issue, which it certainly can be for small firms, look around for funding options. In the Denver area where I live, the city of Denver will cover 100% of the costs, and Excel, our local utility company, covers 90% for the certified passive house tradesperson boot camp. And I took advantage of that, and that's the picture that you see here. In a sole practitioner model, education is everything. I'm the design lead, the technical lead, and the one responsible for quality control. So my level of knowledge directly defines the performance of my projects. There is no separation between design intent and execution. Next slide. For firms that are just getting started, this is the simplest way to approach it. Define your non-negotiables, start early, model performance, build the right team, track what you can, and iterate. You don't need perfect data, you need a consistent process. For me, it isn't just hitting targets. It's seeing that each project improves on the last, clients expecting high performance as a baseline, and teams aligning earlier and more effectively. While it's good to set metrics and goals to strive towards, make them attainable. As an industry, we have set many lofty goals, but don't let that end goal intimidate you from getting started. And I believe we might need to change over presenters at 1. Is that correct, Brian?
We can go a minute over.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have a little bit. Okay.
I
Sounds
know.
good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Um, One of the most important things I've done is define clear non-negotiables. I include a contract clause stating that I will not design homes with new gas mechanical systems, appliances, or equipment. This sets expectations early, it aligns the client, and it removes ambiguity from the design process. For small firms, this is one of the most powerful tools we have, clarity at the outset. Next slide. This is the clause that I have in my contract. I also state that high performance design is integral to the design process, not an add-on feature, but that it is distinct from energy modeling and other consultant services and certification. While this might seem extreme, I have found clients to be surprisingly receptive to this. Usually it's a 5-minute conversation, typically our first call, about electric alternatives to their favorite gas appliances. Induction cooktop for a chef, electric fireplace for a mountain home, battery backup paired with PV in lieu of a gas generator for resiliency. I inform them of my position and let them make the decision to move forward or not. In just over a year of implementing this, I have yet to use a client over this clause. Next slide, please. So let's take a step back from the project scale. In my sustainability action plan, I think about impact at 3 scales: project, practice, and industry. As a small firm, my project impact is limited by volume, but my influence expands through how I practice and how I engage with the industry. One of the greatest ways that you can do this as well is by reporting your projects through the DDX. We saw earlier that there's a huge number of small firms that have committed but are not necessarily reporting. Again, data doesn't have to be perfect. Next slide. My work doesn't stop at my projects. Through involvement with AIA and numerous other organizations, presentations, mentorships, I'm contributing to a broader shift in how we think about residential performance. This creates a feedback loop. What I learn informs my projects, and what I learn from projects feeds back into the industry. If you're curious about how to get involved, please reach out. Next slide. High performance buildings are not the result of better specifications. They're the result of better early decisions, and those decisions start with us. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will I will turn it back over to our presenters. Yeah. Um, so I guess Christina, I think believe you'll be handling the Q&A.
Yes.
But we do have one question in the chat that I'll get started. Nope, somebody answered it. Christina, I'll turn it over to you. If anybody wants to start putting questions in the Q&A, please do so.
I think I just have one here from Josh who says,
Okay.
if you are not designing new gas systems, do you only do electric or geothermal for heating and cooling?
Yeah, so a lot of, Colorado, we typically have colder climates out here. So a lot of clients are looking for radiant, which we can do with heat pumps as well for our primary heating system, and then heat pumps for cooling. If needed, we can have some backup via additional electric heating options, but not having a backup with a gas furnace.
Thank you. Anyone that is attending the webinar can put in any questions in the Q&A, and they'll be happy to answer them. While we wait, is there any advice for small farms to get started in this area that might be helpful?
I would say when it was an easy decision for me to join when I was starting my own firm because I was an advocate for it when I was leading sustainability at a larger firm. And when I kind of gathered all the information and the data of how to let us sign on to the 2030 commitment and brought it to leadership, we had the discussion about what it would actually take time wise. And I think that also helped us make a commitment to doing energy modeling on more of our projects. And so deciding to sign on to the 2030 commitment was that impetus to start tracking a lot more rigorously in those projects, which turned out to be what we needed to understand how our projects were performing and start to improve on them. Without
Perfect.
data, you don't know how to move forward.
The next question is from Karen for Alyssa. Do you have a dedicated person entering information in DDX, or does everyone in your firm participate in information gathering?
That is a great question because I gave this presentation to my firm earlier this morning to test it out, and we talked about just this. For the last couple of years, it has been one person. I have a login, and one person, shout out to Ken and her firm, who has been doing it. And he basically takes a couple hours a year to do it because we collect most of the data is just basic stuff, the square footage, et cetera, that we have for every project. And then he can go to a project manager and say, hey, was there an energy model for this project or not? It really doesn't take him a long time. But we did talk about the fact that, hey, everybody could be in here. It doesn't, cost any more to give everyone access, and that by having people enter their own data, it might bring everybody into sort of closer understanding of what's being asked for, and that will feed back into how they think about when to do those models. So yes, it has been one, but we're moving toward getting everybody up to speed with it.
Great. Next question comes from Brian. What is the lowest hanging fruit in design strategies that everyone can do tomorrow?
I would start and say orientation and massing are huge. If you were to start with one thing when you're starting a project, if you have a east-west orientation, but you have a ton of windows that are all south-facing and no shading, you're starting yourself off on the wrong foot. So trying to focus on how your building reacts to its site, its orientation, specific to solar heat gain is a very easy way that doesn't take calculations to think about at the outset.
Great. Loretta would like to know if you have an approach to getting clients to pay for the additional services for energy modeling.
I would jump in to say no, we don't really have a strategy. Sometimes people are interested and we can explain what the benefit to them will be. Other times, a lot of our clients are municipalities or folks that just don't have extra budget. They don't really have the discretion to do that. We have baked the in-house energy modeling into our own proposals for these. So we're not really saying, we're doing energy modeling for you, it's going to cost this much. Right now we're using Insight, which is within Revit, and it's not that much more of a cost for us, but we feel like it's worth it. So we had a lot of trouble sort of selling energy modeling for a long time and consulting services. And we decided, okay, we're going to learn enough by just doing basic modeling ourselves. And let's share the benefits of it with the client afterwards and bring them along on that education rather than trying to like push it and sell it up front. So that's been our approach.
Excellent. Gary had mentioned that Paperworks had, PlaceWorks rather, had examples of firm plans. Are there examples on the AIA website?
Yes, and Andrew can say more about
Yes,
that.
sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I will we'll share it around as resource links following this call. But yeah, there are very good examples of those. And
Thank you.
also we have a, sorry, I should mention we have a repository of sustainability action plans. I can actually put that in the chat. It's for you when you sign up for the 2030 commitment, you can opt in to basically make your SAP public to other signatories. So we have a repository of those as well that you can easily access on our Dropbox. So I will share that around now in the chat.
Thank you. David asks, if you're doing an all-electric building and your clients are able to choose 100% renewable energy option for their delivered grid electricity, can one choose a green retail tariff option and confirm they've created 100% reduction, even if they don't have renewable energy generation, aka PV panels, etc., on site?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this. I'm not quite sure what the green retail tariff option is, if that's a federal option or if that's specific to New Jersey.
I'm understanding the question to be, if you don't have on-site generation, can you still say you're 100%? I don't think there's a clear answer to that from AIA 2030, but I say yes. I would, that's how I would answer the question. So, Andrew, you can be more clear about that, but we would say, yes, they've selected 100% renewable.
I direct this towards Lindsay or Corey, actually.
We've clarified a little bit that, in the help documentation about like what we're defining as, on-site versus off-site that's going to contribute to your reduction. And really, we're trying to reference some of the standards out there, and that there are some, recs and stuff that are not equal in sort of what you're getting to others, and that really we're looking for something that is, if it's off-site, that is, in one case, owner owned still and within the same grid region, right? Because like if you're you have a project in good example, Nebraska buying wind from Montana or something like that, then there's a lot of losses along the way, and you're really not getting one-to-one effects there. And so there are standards that look at discounting rates, but we don't get into that level of detail in reporting. So we really, if you're doing something that, you're buying green energy in the form of RECs, that we want those to be similar to like what you would look for LEED. Something that's green certified and something that is adding, has additionality to the grid. And that, those RECs are being retired there. So, to really count it towards your 2030 reduction, we're wanting to make sure it's just that higher level of green electricity that you're buying. So.
Next question was from Lucia. Can you recommend cost analysis tools for sustainability upgrades to projects? That's a big question from clients.
Can I jump in on this one a little bit? I would recommend considering working with an energy modeling consultant. I kind of want to tie this answer into a couple of the other questions earlier too, about the low-hanging fruit that you could do right now, and then how do you pay for energy modeling? I've seen success with my firms working with an energy modeling consultant who can do very early phase energy modeling that comes with a really small price tag that it's easy to say it's going to pay for itself in the first 5 years. So that cost is justified. And then that same energy modeling consultant, I'm sure there's tools out there, I don't personally know of them, that translate exactly the energy modeling to the cost savings, but my energy consultant has been able to provide that for me. So, and then we can actually like compare the energy savings of a particular assembly to another assembly, and they can see the payback period or the cost savings.
Yeah, there's certainly the best way is to, have a whole building energy model. A consultant there, if you don't kind of have those resources to help guide you. One of the things is that those consultants, they're not just energy modeling consultants a lot of times. They also are very familiar with the codes and what's sort of the best options to look at just from experience in your building type and climate. There are some simpler tools that a lot of those consultants have developed on their own. There's simpler sort of like spreadsheet based tools that if you're wanting to really just look at some simpler ECMs for your design that maybe don't need a full whole building energy model to help you give cost saving numbers. That some of those same firms you could ask for that, kind of be more specific there. That's about what you're looking to, get savings calculations for. I know that especially when doing energy audits for existing buildings, that's something that we look at is are these recommendations that we can do a simpler calculation to estimate what the cost savings are, or are they kind of a more complicated one that, has more interactive effects that we need to follow.
Thank you. Bruce would like to know what considerations should firms consider if they are primarily doing commercial work, especially developer driving work that doesn't prioritize the 2030 commitment. If it doesn't cost them more money, they are open to the concepts, but money drives everything.
I know a lot of my work personally revolves around residential work, but through a lot of my volunteering and advocacy work, we are trying to spread the word about certain incentives. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we can lean on with commercial driven work are financial incentives at the local level, state level, less so on the federal level now, but a lot of those, our local utility company, for instance, will offset some of the costs for certain certifications. So trying to rely on those financial incentives to be a driver to high performance design.
That's a great point. For those sort of projects, those are the ones that I really like to take and use the lessons learned from the projects with owners that do care and have their priorities. And that you can know that, okay, well, these things that we figured out on a similar project that maybe, wasn't as lean on cost, but they were, like you said, very effective, didn't add costs, to the project necessarily, or they were neutral, but did save energy and save energy costs. So I think, those are really the opportunities to shine lights on what you've done before, and implement those and hopefully educate that developer in the value of those so that the next project they're more open to explore.
Say that if you're doing that kind of work, that might be some of your projects, but it's not all of your projects. It still doesn't preclude you from participating in the 2030 and reporting and learning and growing your firm, growing your capacity to do so, even if you're not employing it on every project.
Simon asks, are there easily accessible in-house energy modeling tools anyone is using? We don't like using the code prescriptive design methods, but many clients don't want to pay for the energy modeling.
Yeah, I know Alyssa mentioned Insight as a native tool to Revit. It's something that I use very early on in design as well, before we bring an energy modeler, just to track where we are. It's really important for schematic design and in the early parts of DD before we bring on an energy modeler. I also use Climate Studio, which is a little bit more tricky because you have to export it into Rhino, and there is a license fee associated to it, but that has been really powerful for daylighting modeling as well, as some energy modeling. So if you were familiar with Grasshopper, somebody who's familiar with Grasshopper, it's a very similar platform there.
Lucia asks, what programs or tools do you prefer using to track building performance in the schematic design phase and DD/CD phases?
I think that's sort of what Marisol just answered a little bit. There are.
Ronald asks, one speaker talked about ROI from energy savings resulting from the 2030 challenge performance savings. Do you have positive ROI for architects who are 2030 challenge signatories? Are firms able to earn extra fee or win more projects? Return from the extra effort for energy modeling and data effort required?
I can answer this quick that we actually are in the process of developing an ROI document. So consolidating a bunch of feedback and more anecdotal experiences of firms, benefits to clients, return on investment, profitability, et cetera, and making use of case studies. Lindsay actually helped draft the profitability return on investment kind of section of that. I don't know, Lindsay, if you want to speak from personal experience on that side of things. But yes, we are developing a report on ROI. It should be published in the next month or so.
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit. I think that document, other people wrote different parts of it, and there is definitely a section in there about the ROIs for clients. I sort of focused on the ROIs for firms. But I've seen personally and can attest to the marketing opportunities that exist through passive house and high performance design, and also healthy materials. There are, at least where I live, there's a lot of clients in the mid to high end markets looking for that. And nowadays it's pretty much imperative to be implementing these strategies to attract talent and maintain them on your team. And I guess I could talk a little bit about the ROI for clients too, just about the energy savings, and Marisol and Alyssa can attest to this as well, but the payback period for going all the way to passive house, like certification, is longer than implementing some of the methods and sort of like hitting a little bit of a sweet spot. At least it depends on the climate zone that you're in. But it can be from 20 years at the high end down to 5 years at the low end. I'd say you can do net zero really easily with a 5-year payback.
Ryan asked, are there specific examples of specification language or sections that could be added to support the goals? Does it require a specialized consultant to provide that for each project?
I mean, I think that, part of the process that at the beginning, before you really get into, doing design is about using the DDX not just as a reporting platform, but as part of a design tool to benchmark and set goals for your project. And you could certainly use that goal to, I don't know that I would put it in my spec per se, but I mean, certainly it's something that we've included in criteria packages for stuff that then someone else is going to take and develop, a full CD design package, but saying that, based on, benchmarking and what percent reduction for this building time and climate zone, could potentially, achieve this level by percent reduction. So I think really more about goal setting, set criteria that you're going to use to design.
I guess I would add that the question seems to come from the point of view of, can we do everything the same and then add something to, add a consultant and then meet the goals that way? And I guess I would say that this is asking us to do things differently and to think from the very beginning of a project about what the different goals are, not necessarily thinking about an add-on at the end. It's just a different way to sort of start out.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would just add to that. I shared a link in the chat for the Colorado Embodied Carbon Collaborative. We have developed some specification tools, and it is lower. It is focusing on lower embodied carbon, which is also a component of the 2030 commitment. And then in practice, I do most of my specifications as kind of general notes embedded within my my drawing document. So within that, I just have a list of items during construction that submittals that I want to see to make sure that we're hitting our specific goals.
Thank you. And Jolly would like to know if you're tracking energy use 1 or 2 years out.
Question being actual energy use. I think that's what they mean. And I would say, yes, we definitely try to go back and ask our clients for actual energy use and see how that compares to our models. Sometimes we're pleasantly surprised it's doing better than we thought it would, and sometimes not. So that is a key, education and learning tool to look at the actuals.
And I'd point out too that now there's the ability to link a project in the DDX to Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So if you're using that as something to be able to aggregate the data, or I know there's a lot of platforms that have built-in APIs to pull utility data from utilities and third-party billing platforms and kind of feed that straight into Portfolio Manager. And so if that's something that you already have, then you can very easily link that to the project in the DDX and be able to see those comparisons.
Josh asks, many states provide incentives such for certifications in LEED and Energy Star programs. Is AIA planning on getting in on any of those lists? That is a simple way to convince a client.
have like the AI directly funding incentives to participate in 2030. Which I'm not aware of any talk or movement to do something like that.
Not yet. Jeffrey would like to know, has anyone tried pitching energy modeling as a way to tap into rebates from PSEG or EDA programs like NJ Cool?
Specific to our New Jersey Clean Energy Program adds other rebates that include for energy modeling and custom ECMs there. I would imagine most rebate programs do. They have a more custom rebate program that uses energy model to pull things together. So specific ECMs. So I would say all of them.
Dates are different, but that's one of the main ways we get energy modeling onto some of our projects is through the utilities. So yes, can't speak to New Jersey, but we do utilize that in New Hampshire.
All right,
Echo
looks
that
like
as well.
there's one more question. Paul would like to know, is there liability in suggesting energy savings and not meeting it?
Thanks and asked, no guarantees, not predicting the future. I know we always put a disclaimer there, where it's not predicted, it's estimated, and actual usage is subject to change based on, how the building changes. We always compare it to like the EPA estimated miles per gallon car, right? That it's easy to drive that car in a way that doesn't do that. So we haven't seen that to be a liability, but we certainly qualify how it's stated. Those are
Wonderful. I wanted to thank all of our panelists today for this presentation. It was wonderful. And thank you to all our participants who came today to listen. We will be sending out an email with a copy of the presentation, all of the various links and resources for you. So thank you for joining AIA New Jersey, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.